The Zenari ultimatum spread like wildfire across the globe. News outlets broadcasted the message on repeat, showing images of the alien ship looming ominously in the sky. People gathered in streets and squares, some praying for peace while others prepared for war. Governments convened emergency meetings, their leaders debating what to do next. The clock was ticking, and every second felt heavier than the last dot at the UNSF headquarters. John Carter paced back and forth in his office, his mind racing with possibilities. He had seen the arrogance in Vokar's eyes, the dismissive way he spoke about humanity as if they were nothing more than insects. It stung, but it also gave him a glimmer of hope. Arrogance bred carelessness, and carelessness could be exploited. Beside him, Lavra Bennett pored over data on her tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. She had been working non-stop since their return from the Zenari mothership, searching for any clue that might give humanity an edge. "I think I've found something," Lavra said suddenly, breaking the silence. John stopped pacing and leaned over her shoulder. On the screen was a series of graphs and charts, lines spiking and dipping erratically. "Their energy signatures are inconsistent," she explained. "It's subtle, but there are fluctuations that shouldn't be there. If we can figure out why, we might be able to disrupt their systems." John nodded thoughtfully. "Good work. Keep digging. We'll need every advantage we can get." He straightened up and turned to face the window, where the alien ship dominated the horizon. "We have less than 72 hours. Let's make them count." Across the world, people reacted differently to the crisis. In New York City, crowds filled Times Square, holding signs that read, "Stand strong and no surrender." In quieter corners of the planet, families huddled together, whispering prayers and sharing tearful goodbyes. Social media buzzed with speculation, fear, and defiance. Some called for immediate surrender, arguing that resistance would only lead to destruction. Others urged humanity to fight, reminding everyone of the resilience and ingenuity that had carried the species through countless challenges. General Stephen Hayes stood before the UNSF Council, his voice firm and unwavering. "These aliens think we're weak because we haven't traveled the stars like they have. But they don't know us. They don't know what we're capable of. If we show them even a fraction of our potential, they'll regret underestimating us." His words resonated with many, but not everyone agreed. Diplomats argued for negotiation, hoping to buy time or find common ground. Scientists proposed using Earth's advanced knowledge of biology and chemistry to create weapons tailored to alien physiology. Engineers worked around the clock to retrofit existing spacecraft with experimental technology. Every branch of human society mobilized, each contributing what they could to the effort. Meanwhile, the Zenari continued to taunt humanity. Without warning, they obliterated a small asteroid near Earth, turning it into a cloud of debris that disrupted global communications. The shockwave rattled windows and knocked out power grids in several countries. Panic surged and protests erupted in cities worldwide. Some accused governments of failing to protect them, while others called for unity and strength. Lavra spent long hours in the lab analyzing the data she had collected. She collaborated with other scientists, bouncing ideas off one another and testing theories late into the night. Slowly but surely, patterns began to emerge. The inconsistencies in the Zenari energy signatures suggested vulnerabilities in their shielding and propulsion systems. If targeted correctly, these weaknesses could disable their ships or at least slow them down. "We need to act fast," Lavra told John during one of their briefings. "If we wait too long, they'll realize we're onto something. We have to hit them hard and fast." John agreed. He assembled a team of elite pilots, including Captain Emily Dawson and Lieutenant Ryan Brooks, both known for their skill and bravery. Together, they reviewed battle plans, studying holographic simulations of the Zenari fleet. The goal was clear: launch a surprise attack, cripple their flagship, and force them to retreat. It was a risky plan, but it was the best chance humanity had got as the hours ticked away. John addressed the UNSF Council one final time. Standing tall in his uniform, he looked every leader in the eye. "This isn't just about winning a battle," he said. "It's about proving to ourselves and to the universe that humanity is worth respecting. We've faced challenges before, and we've always risen to meet them. Today is no different." His speech inspired those present, and soon the entire operation was set into motion. Ships were loaded with weapons, fuel tanks were topped off, and crews prepared for departure. Families gathered at spaceports to say goodbye to loved ones heading into battle. Tears were shed, hugs exchanged, and promises made to return home safely. On the eve of the deadline, John visited Lavra in her lab. She looked exhausted but determined, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted equipment. "You've done amazing work," he said gently. "We couldn't have gotten this far without you." Lavra managed a tired smile. "Let's just hope it's enough. Humanity deserves a fighting chance." John placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll give them one. And when this is over, we'll look back on this moment as the day we proved ourselves to the stars." The following morning, the human fleet launched into space. Dozens of ships streaked across the atmosphere, their engines roaring like thunder. Pilots focused intently on their controls, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. Behind them, Earth watched anxiously, hearts pounding with anticipation. As the fleet approached the Zinari Armada, tension mounted. The alien ships hung in formation, their sleek designs gleaming menacingly in the sunlight. For a moment, it seemed impossible to believe that such a small force could stand against such overwhelming odds. But then, the first shots were fired. Human ships darted through the void, weaving between larger vessels and unleashing barrages of missiles and energy beams. The Zinari responded quickly, their weapons cutting through space with terrifying precision. Explosions lit up the darkness, sending shockwaves rippling outward. Despite the chaos, the human fleet held its ground, striking key targets and exploiting the weaknesses Lavra had identified. Back on Earth, millions watched live broadcasts of the battle, cheering whenever a Zinari ship was hit. The tide of public opinion shifted dramatically, with even skeptics rallying behind the fighters. Messages of support flooded communication channels, urging the pilots to keep going. In the heat of the battle, John coordinated strategies from Jizen's. The command ship, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Stay sharp," he ordered. "We've got this." Captain Emily Dawson led a squadron directly toward the Zinari flagship, dodging enemy fire with incredible skill. Her determination burned brighter than ever as she locked onto her target. "For Earth," she whispered, pressing the trigger. The missile struck true, causing a massive explosion that rocked the alien vessel. Cheers erupted among the human fleet, but John knew the fight wasn't over yet. The Zinari were wounded, but not defeated. They regrouped quickly, launching counterattacks with renewed ferocity. Despite the mounting pressure, humanity refused to yield. Ship after ship joined the fray, pushing forward with relentless resolve. The battle raged on, each side refusing to give an inch. But deep down, John knew they had already won something far greater than territory or resources. They had proven to themselves and to the Zinari that humanity was not to be underestimated. And somewhere aboard the damaged flagship, Volker watched the unfolding chaos with growing unease. His laughter had faded, replaced by a flicker of doubt. Perhaps, he thought, these fragile beings were stronger than they appeared. The battle raged on, filling the void of space with bursts of light and deafening explosions. Human ships darted between the larger Zinari vessels, their movements precise and calculated. The aliens fought back fiercely, their weapons cutting through the darkness with terrifying accuracy. Despite the chaos, John Carter's voice remained steady as he coordinated the attack from the command ship. "Hold your positions," he ordered. "We can't let them regroup." Captain Emily Dawson led her squadron with unmatched skill, weaving through enemy fire and delivering devastating blows to the Zenari fleet. Her hands gripped the controls tightly, sweat beading on her forehead as she focused on the mission ahead. Behind her, Lieutenant Ryan Brooks provided cover, his sharp reflexes keeping their team alive amidst the chaos. Together, they pushed forward, inching closer to the heart of the alien armada. Back on Earth, millions watched the live broadcasts, their hearts pounding with every explosion and near miss. Families huddled around screens, praying for the safety of their loved ones in the fight. Social media buzzed with messages of support, urging the pilots to keep going. For the first time in days, hope began to replace fear. Humanity was fighting back, and it was a sight to behold. Lavra Bennett monitored the battle from UNSF headquarters, her eyes glued to the screens displaying real-time data. She worked alongside other scientists, analyzing the effects of their experimental weapons on the Zenari ships. The inconsistencies in the aliens' energy signatures were proving to be a critical weakness. Every hit disrupted their systems, if only temporarily. "Keep targeting their propulsion units," Lara instructed over the comms. "It's working." The human fleet pressed its advantage, focusing on key areas of the Zenari formation. Missiles streaked across the battlefield, striking vital points on the alien ships. Explosions rippled outward, sending debris tumbling into the void. The Zenari retaliated with everything they had, but their earlier arrogance had cost them dearly. They hadn't expected humanity to put up such a fight, and their confusion showed in their increasingly disorganized responses. John knew the flagship was the key to turning the tide. It wasn't just the largest ship in the Zenari fleet. It was also the command center. If they could disable it, the rest of the armada would fall into disarray. But getting close enough to strike wouldn't be easy. The flagship was heavily guarded, its defenses nearly impenetrable. Still, John had faith in his team. "Emily," he said over the comms, "I need you to lead a strike on the flagship. Can you do it?" Emily didn't hesitate. "Understood. We're moving in now." She signaled to her squadron, and together they broke away from the main fleet, heading straight for the massive alien vessel. The journey was perilous, with enemy ships swarming around them like angry hornets. Laser blasts filled the air, forcing Emily to make split-second decisions to avoid being hit. Beside her, Ryan kept the enemy at bay, his own ship taking heavy fire, but holding steady. As they approached the flagship, Emily noticed something strange. The surface of the ship seemed to ripple, almost like water disturbed by a stone. It reminded her of what Lara had described during their visit to the mothership, the biomechanical nature of Zenari technology. "There's something about this ship," Emily muttered to herself. "It's not just metal." She relayed her observation to Lara, who quickly cross-referenced it with her data. "You're right," Lara replied. "Their ships are partially organic. That's why the energy fluctuations are so unpredictable. If we can disrupt the biological components, we might be able to cripple the entire system." Armed with this new information, Emily adjusted her strategy. Instead of targeting the ship's engines directly, she aimed for areas where the organic material seemed most concentrated. Her missiles struck true, causing visible distortions in the flagship surface. The Zenari responded immediately, launching waves of drones to intercept the attackers. The battle intensified, with both sides refusing to give ground. Inside the flagship, Volker watched the unfolding chaos with growing frustration. He had underestimated humanity, and now he was paying the price. His earlier mockery felt hollow as he realized the humans were not only resourceful, but also determined. How could they have figured out our weaknesses? He demanded of his advisors, his voice laced with anger. One of his subordinates stepped forward hesitantly. They must have analyzed our energy signatures during the diplomatic meeting. Their scientist, Dr. Bennett, she is highly skilled. Volker clenched his fists, his calm demeanor cracking under the pressure. This changes nothing. Destroy them before they cause further damage. Outside, Emily and her team continued their assault, pushing deeper into the flagship's defenses. The closer they got, the more intense the resistance became. Enemy ships closed in from all sides, forcing Emily to perform maneuvers that tested the limits of her piloting skills. Ryan stayed close, his unwavering support giving her the confidence to keep going. "We're almost there," she said, her voice strained but resolute. Finally, they reached their target. Emily locked onto the flagship's core, a pulsating mass of organic material surrounded by layers of shielding. She armed her remaining missiles and prepared to fire. "This is it," she whispered, her finger hovering over the trigger. "For Earth." Before she could act, however, a massive blast rocked her ship. One of the Zanari drones had slipped past Ryan's defenses and scored a direct hit. Alarms blared as smoke filled the cockpit, and Emily struggled to maintain control. "Ryan," she shouted, her voice cracking with panic. "I'm hit." Ryan turned his ship around instantly, firing at the drone that had attacked Emily. "Hang on," he said firmly. "I've got you covered." With Ryan providing cover, Emily steadied her ship and refocused on the flagship's core. She ignored the pain in her side and the chaos surrounding her, channeling all her energy into the task at hand. Taking a deep breath, she fired the missiles. The impact was immediate and catastrophic. The flagship shuddered violently, its surface cracking and splitting apart. A massive explosion erupted from within, lighting up the battlefield like a second sun. The shockwave rippled outward, knocking nearby ships off course. Both human and Zanari vessels scrambled to regain stability as the flagship began to break apart. Inside, Volker staggered to his feet, his expression a mix of disbelief and rage. "No," he growled. "This cannot happen." Back on the command ship, John watched the flagship's destruction with a mixture of relief and awe. "They did it," he said softly, his voice filled with pride. "They actually did it." The loss of their command center threw the Zanari fleet into disarray. Without centralized leadership, their formations crumbled, and their attacks became erratic. Seizing the opportunity, the human fleet launched a final push, driving the remaining alien ships away from Earth. One by one, the Zanari retreated, disappearing into the depths of space. As the battle subsided, cheers erupted across the human fleet. Pilots hugged one another, tears streaming down their faces as the weight of their victory sank in. On Earth, celebrations broke out in cities and towns worldwide. Strangers embraced in the streets, waving flags and chanting slogans of triumph. Humanity had faced an unimaginable threat and emerged victorious. Emily limped her damaged ship back to the command vessel, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. When she stepped out of the cockpit, John was waiting for her. He pulled her into a tight embrace, his gratitude evident in the strength of his grip. "You saved us," he said simply. Emily shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "We saved each other." Later, as the fleet began its journey back to Earth, Laura reflected on what they had accomplished. The Zanari had laughed at humanity, dismissing them as insignificant. But humanity had proven them wrong. They had shown courage, ingenuity, and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. And while the victory was sweet, Laura knew it came at a cost. Lives had been lost, and scars would remain long after the celebrations ended. Still, she allowed herself a small smile as she gazed out at the stars. Humanity had taken its first step onto the cosmic stage, and the universe had taken notice. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she believed they were ready to face them. because when humanity stood united, it was capable of greatness. And somewhere, far away, Volker watched the footage of Earth's defiance, his laughter replaced by a grudging respect. Perhaps he thought these fragile beings were worth watching more closely next time. The aftermath of the battle left Earth in a strange state of calm and chaos. The skies were clear once again, the alien ships having retreated into the depths of space. But the scars of the conflict were everywhere. Cities bore the marks of disrupted power grids and shattered windows from the shockwaves caused by the Zenari's earlier demonstration of force. Hospitals overflowed with wounded soldiers and civilians alike, their stories a testament to both the devastation and resilience of humanity. Despite the challenges, there was an undeniable sense of triumph in the air. John Carter stood on the deck of the UNSF flagship as it re-entered Earth's atmosphere, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The sight of the blue planet below filled him with a mix of pride and sorrow. They had won, but the cost had been high. Too many lives had been lost, too many families torn apart. Still, he reminded himself that they had achieved something extraordinary. Humanity had faced an advanced alien race and emerged victorious, proving not only to the Zenari, but also to themselves that they were capable of standing tall against any threat. Back on the ground, Emily Dawson and Ryan Brooks were greeted as heroes. Crowds gathered at the spaceport, cheering and waving flags as the returning pilots disembarked. Emily forced a smile for the cameras, but inside she felt hollow. The adrenaline of battle had worn off, leaving her exhausted and overwhelmed. She had followed orders, made tough decisions, and struck the decisive blow that crippled the Zenari flagship. But none of that erased the faces of fallen comrades or the weight of responsibility she carried. Ryan noticed her quiet demeanor and stayed close, offering silent support as they navigated the sea of reporters and well-wishers. Lavra Bennett returned to her lab, her mind still racing with questions. The battle may have ended, but the data collected during the fight was invaluable. She pored over readings and logs, analyzing every detail of the Zenari technology and their vulnerabilities. Her findings confirmed what she had suspected all. Along their organic-based systems were both a strength and a weakness. Understanding this hybrid nature could give humanity an edge if the Zenari ever returned. Lavra knew the aliens wouldn't stay away forever. Their retreat was likely temporary, a tactical withdrawal rather than a permanent defeat. Humanity needed to be ready for whatever came next. General Stephen Hayes convened a meeting with top military leaders and scientists to discuss the future. "This victory doesn't mean we're safe," he said bluntly. "If anything, it means we're on their radar now. They underestimated us once, but they won't make that mistake again." He emphasized the importance of continuing research and development, urging teams to build on the breakthroughs achieved during the battle. "We've proven we can fight, but fighting isn't enough. We need to innovate, adapt, and prepare for round two." The public reaction to the victory was mixed. While most celebrated the bravery of the pilots and the ingenuity of the scientists, others voiced concerns about the implications of humanity's newfound role in interstellar politics. Some feared retaliation from the Zenari, while others worried about attracting the attention of even more dangerous alien species. Social media buzzed with debates, memes, and conspiracy theories. For better or worse, the world had changed irrevocably. Amidst the celebrations and reflections, John found himself thinking about Volker. The alien leader's arrogance had blinded him to humanity's potential, but there had been moments during their encounters where John sensed something deeper, a flicker of curiosity beneath the disdain. Perhaps the Zenari weren't so different from humans after all, driven by ambition, fear, and a desire for survival. It was a sobering thought, one that made John wonder whether peaceful coexistence might someday be possible, or if conflict was inevitable. Emily struggled to adjust to life after the battle. The cheers of the crowd faded quickly, replaced by sleepless nights and haunting memories of the fight. She replayed key moments in her mind, questioning whether she could have done more to protect her team. Ryan tried to reassure her, reminding her that she had done everything humanly possible under impossible circumstances. "You gave us a chance," he told her firmly. "That's all anyone can ask for." Lavra continued her work tirelessly, determined to unlock the secrets of Zinari. Technology. She collaborated with engineers to develop new weapons and defenses based on the insights gained during the battle. One breakthrough involved creating a device capable of disrupting the organic components of alien ships, essentially turning their own biology against them. It wasn't perfect, but it represented a significant step forward in humanity's ability to defend itself. As days turned into weeks, the initial euphoria of victory began to fade, replaced by a renewed focus on preparation. Governments around the world allocated resources to strengthen Earth's defenses, investing in space exploration and advanced weaponry. Space stations were upgraded and new fleets were commissioned. Scientists worked around the clock to improve existing technologies and explore new possibilities. Humanity was no longer content to gaze at the stars. It was ready to reach out and claim its place among them. John took time to visit the families of those who had died in the battle, offering condolences and sharing stories of their loved ones' bravery. Each visit weighed heavily on him, but he knew it was important to honor their sacrifices. These men and women had given everything to protect Earth, and their legacy deserved to be remembered. During one such visit, a young boy handed John a drawing of a spaceship surrounded by stars. "My dad said we're not alone anymore," the boy said proudly. "He said we're part of something bigger now." Those words stuck with John long after he left. Humanity had indeed become part of something bigger, stepping onto a stage far grander than Earth itself. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges and uncertainties. But John believed in humanity's ability to rise to the occasion. They had already proven they could stand against overwhelming odds. Now they had to prove they could endure. Far beyond the reaches of Earth's solar system, Volker sat in silence, aboard his damaged vessel, watching footage of the battle. His expression was unreadable, a mixture of anger, frustration, and something else, respect. The humans had surprised him, not just with their tactics, but with their determination. They had fought with a ferocity he hadn't anticipated, refusing to yield even when the odds seemed insurmountable. For the first time in centuries, Volker felt a flicker of doubt about the Zinari Empire's dominance. His advisors urged him to retaliate immediately, to crush humanity before they became a greater threat. But Volker hesitated. There was something intriguing about these fragile beings, something worth studying further. Perhaps they could be useful allies or formidable enemies. Either way, they had earned his attention. As Volker stared at the images of Earth glowing faintly in the distance, he made a decision. The humans had shown they were not to be underestimated. If the Zinari wanted to secure their place in the galaxy, they would need to tread carefully. Humanity might have won this round, but the game was far from over. Back on Earth, John stood on a hill overlooking the city lights, the hum of recovery efforts filling the night air. Beside him, Laura joined him quietly, holding a tablet filled with fresh data. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us," she said softly. John nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars. "Yeah, we do, but we've got this far. No matter what comes next, I think we'll handle it." For now, humanity had earned a brief moment of peace. The universe stretched endlessly above them, full of mysteries and dangers yet unseen. But, for the first time, Earth looked outward without fear. They had faced the unknown and stood their ground. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The days following the battle were filled with rebuilding and reflection. Earth slowly pieced itself back together, its people working tirelessly to repair the damage caused by the Zenari's brief but devastating show of force. Power grids were restored, shattered windows replaced, and streets cleaned of debris. Yet beneath the surface of recovery, a deeper transformation was taking place. Humanity had stared into the abyss and found not fear but resolve. The victory over the Zenari was more than just a military triumph. It was a declaration to the universe that Earth was no longer an isolated speck in the cosmos. It was a player on the interstellar stage. John Carter spent much of his time traveling across the globe, meeting with world leaders, scientists, and ordinary citizens. He spoke at conferences, schools, and community gatherings, sharing stories of the battle and urging humanity to stay united. "We've proven what we're capable of," he said during one speech. "But this is just the beginning. If we want to secure our future, we need to keep moving forward together." His words resonated deeply, inspiring millions to contribute to the effort in whatever way they could. Farmers donated food for relief efforts. Engineers volunteered their skills to improve defenses. And artists created works celebrating the resilience of the human spirit. Emily Dawson struggled to find her place in the new reality. The cheers of the crowd had faded, leaving her with a quiet emptiness she couldn't shake. She attended ceremonies honoring fallen comrades, placing flowers at memorials, and listening as families shared memories of those who had given everything. Each story reminded her of the weight of her actions during the battle. She had struck the decisive blow against the Zenari flagship, but at what cost? Nights were long and restless, filled with dreams of explosions and voices calling out for help. Ryan stayed by her side, offering unwavering support. "You saved us all," he told her one evening as they sat on a park bench watching the sunset. "Don't forget that." Lavra Bennett threw herself into her work, determined to ensure humanity would never be caught off guard again. Her lab became a hub of innovation, buzzing with activity as teams of scientists and engineers collaborated on groundbreaking projects. They developed new propulsion systems inspired by Zenari technology, refined weapons capable of targeting organic components, and even began designing manned spacecraft capable of venturing far beyond Earth's solar system. Laura's mind raced with possibilities, each discovery fueling her drive to push boundaries further. "We've taken the first step," she told John during one of their meetings. "Now we need to see how far we can go." General Stephen Hayes oversaw the expansion of Earth's defense network, coordinating efforts to build stronger fleets and establish early warning systems for potential threats. He worked closely with international leaders to create a unified command structure, ensuring that humanity would speak with one voice if faced with another alien encounter. "This isn't just about protecting ourselves," he explained during a briefing. "It's about showing the universe that we're ready to take our place among the stars. Respect isn't given, it's earned." As the weeks turned into months, humanity's focus shifted from recovery to exploration. Space agencies launched probes into deep space, searching for signs of other civilizations while mapping uncharted regions of the galaxy. Astronomers studied data collected during the battle, uncovering clues about the Zenari's origins and possible allies or enemies lurking in the cosmos. Schools introduced courses on astrophysics and interstellar diplomacy, preparing the next generation for a future where Earth might interact regularly with extraterrestrial life. The dream of reaching the stars no longer felt distant, it felt inevitable. Yet amidst the optimism, there were whispers of caution. Some worried that humanity's newfound confidence might lead to recklessness, tempting leaders to venture too far too soon. Others feared that the Zenari would return with greater numbers and deadlier weapons, seeking revenge for their humiliating defeat. These concerns were not ignored. Instead, They fueled debates about how best to balance ambition with prudence. Lavra often reminded her colleagues that knowledge was humanity's greatest weapon. The more we understand about them and about ourselves, the better prepared we'll be, she said during a conference. Curiosity keeps us safe as much as courage does. Far away, Boker watched Earth from the shadows of space, his thoughts swirling like storm clouds. The humans had surprised him, not only with their ingenuity, but also with their unity. In the aftermath of the battle, his advisors urged him to strike back immediately, to crush humanity before they grew stronger. But Boker hesitated. Something about the humans intrigued him, their determination, their adaptability, their refusal to yield even when faced with overwhelming odds. For centuries, the Zenari Empire had expanded unchecked, conquering weaker species without resistance. Humanity was different, and that difference fascinated him. He ordered his scientists to study the data gathered during the battle, analyzing every detail of human tactics and technology. Reports poured in, highlighting vulnerabilities, but also strengths. The humans' ability to innovate under pressure was unmatched. Their creativity, a double-edged sword that made them both unpredictable and dangerous. Boker knew that dismissing them as insignificant would be a fatal mistake. Instead, he chose to observe, to learn, and perhaps someday to engage not as conquerors, but as equals. Back on Earth, John stood atop a hill, overlooking the city lights, the hum of progress filling the night air. Beside him, Lavra joined him quietly, holding a tablet filled with fresh data. "We've come so far," she said softly. "But there's still so much we don't know." John nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars. "That's what makes it exciting. Every question leads to another answer. Every challenge pushes us further. We've shown the universe that we're here to stay. Now it's up to us to decide what kind of neighbors we want to be." For now, humanity had earned a fragile peace. The road ahead would be long and uncertain, full of dangers yet unseen. But for the first time, Earth looked outward with hope rather than fear. They had faced the unknown and stood their ground. Whatever lay ahead, whether alliances or conflicts, discoveries or disasters, they would face it together. And as the sun rose over a new day, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, humanity took its first confident steps toward a future among the stars. The year was 2084, and humanity had finally reached a point where its dreams of the stars seemed within grasp. For decades, scientists had been scanning the skies, searching for signs of life beyond Earth. They had sent probes to distant planets, listened for alien signals, and even broadcasted messages into the void, hoping someone or something would hear them. But nothing ever came back. Until now. It started with a faint blip on radar screens at the United Nations, Space Defense Force UNSF headquarters in Geneva. At first, no one thought much of it. Space debris wasn't uncommon, especially with so many satellites orbiting Earth. But when the object began moving in ways that defied physics, alarm bells rang across the globe. This wasn't just any piece of rock floating through space. It was a ship, and it was heading straight for Earth. Commander John Carter stood in the control room, his eyes glued to the massive screen displaying the incoming vessel. He was a tall man with sharp features and a calm demeanor, qualities that made him one of the most respected leaders in the UNSF. Beside him stood Dr. Lavra Bennett, a brilliant astrophysicist whose work on interstellar communication had earned her a place among the world's top scientists. She adjusted her glasses nervously as the data poured in. "This isn't natural," she said softly. "Whatever this is, it's intelligent." Within hours, a ship entered Earth's orbit. It was enormous, dwarfing anything humans had ever built. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting sunlight in dazzling patterns. The shape was sleek and otherworldly, unlike anything anyone had seen before. Panic spread quickly around the world as news outlets broke the story. Governments scrambled to respond, but no one knew what to do. Was this an invasion? A peaceful visit? Or something else entirely? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, contact was established. A holographic projection flickered to life in the UNSF command center, revealing the image of an alien being. It was humanoid, but distinctly alien, with smooth gray skin, large black eyes, and a mouth that seemed incapable of smiling. The creature introduced itself as Voker, leader of the Zenari Empire. His voice was deep and resonant, carrying an air of superiority that made everyone in the room bristle. "Humans," Voker began, his tone dripping with disdain. "We have observed your species for some time. Your wars, your greed, your inability to see beyond yourselves. It is both fascinating and pitiful." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You are children playing with toys you do not understand. And yet, here you stand, daring to gaze at the stars." John clenched his fists, but forced himself to remain composed. Diplomacy was key here. They couldn't afford to provoke these beings without knowing their capabilities. "We welcome you to our planet," he said, choosing his words carefully. "If you've come in peace, we are eager to learn from you." Voker let out a low chuckle, the sound sending shivers down Laura's spine. "Peace? You misunderstand. We did not come to exchange pleasantries or share knowledge. We came because we require resources your planet possesses in abundance. You will provide them willingly, or we will take them by force." The room fell silent. No one dared to breathe. John took a step forward, his voice steady despite the knot forming in his stomach. "With all due respect, Earth belongs to us. If you want to negotiate, we're willing to talk. But if you threaten us, we won't back down." Voker tilted, his head studying John with an expression that bordered on amusement. "Threats? From you?" He laughed outright, the sound echoing through the chamber like thunder. "Your primitive weapons are laughable compared to ours. Do not mistake my curiosity for fear. I suggest you consider my offer carefully." Before anyone could respond, the hologram vanished, leaving behind a tense silence. John turned to Laura, who looked pale but determined. "What now?" she asked quietly. "We prepare," John replied. "If they think we'll roll over without a fight, they've got another thing coming." Over the next few days, the Zenari allowed a delegation of humans aboard their mothership for further talks. John and Laura were chosen to represent Earth, along with a small team of scientists and military personnel. As they approached the alien vessel, they couldn't help but marvel at its size and complexity. It loomed above them like a colossal predator, its surface rippling as if alive. Stepping inside was like entering another world. The corridors were smooth and metallic, glowing faintly with an inner light. Strange symbols adorned the walls, pulsing gently as if monitoring their presence. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and every step echoed eerily in the vast emptiness. When they met Volker again, his attitude hadn't improved. He lounged casually on what appeared to be a throne flanked by two towering guards armed with weapons that looked more advanced than anything humanity had ever created. "So," he said lazily, "you have decided to humor me. How quaint." John ignored the insult and focused on the task at hand. "We're here to discuss terms," he said firmly. "Tell us what you want, and we'll see if we can reach an agreement." Volker smirked, clearly enjoying himself. "Very well. We require access to your planet's mineral deposits, particularly those containing rare elements essential to our technology. In return, we may grant you limited protection under the Zenari Empire. Consider it a generous offer." Laura frowned, her mind racing. "And if we refuse?" Volker leaned forward, his dark eyes gleaming dangerously. "Then you leave us no choice. but to demonstrate why resistance is futile. As the meeting dragged on, it became painfully clear that the Zenari viewed humanity as little more than pests. Their arrogance was infuriating, but John reminded himself to stay calm. Losing his temper wouldn't help anyone. Still, as they left the mothership and returned to Earth, one thought lingered in his mind. The aliens had underestimated them. And underestimating humanity had always been a grave mistake. Back on Earth, preparations began in earnest. The Zenari had issued an ultimatum surrender within 72 hours or face annihilation. While some leaders advocated for compliance, others argued that humanity should fight back. General Stephen Hayes, a grizzled veteran with decades of experience, voiced his opinion loudly during a heated council meeting. "We've faced tougher odds before," he growled. "If we show weakness now, they'll walk all over us." Lavra spent long hours analyzing the data she'd gathered during their visit to the Zenari ship. Something about their energy signatures didn't add up. There were fluctuations, inconsistencies that hinted at vulnerabilities. If they could exploit those weaknesses, they might stand a chance. But time was running out. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on John's shoulders. As he gazed up at the night sky, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Zenari had laughed at humanity, mocked their achievements, and dismissed their potential. But laughter could turn to shock, and shock to fear, if they played their cards right. For now, all they could do was wait, plan, and hope. Because when the clock struck 0, humanity would need every ounce of courage it could muster.